Welcome in, everyone, and thank you for listening to the 169th ever episode of the Missouri Sports Podcast, brought to you by 106 Apparel and recording from the Revel Advertising Studio in beautiful Springfield, Missouri. I'm one of your hosts, Cameron Albert, alongside my good friend and fellow Mizzou fan, Kyle DeVries. How are you doing today, Kyle?
I'm doing great, Cameron. How are you?
I'm doing well. We posted some exclusive Patreon content today. That was pretty fun to record. So, little plug to our Patreon page.
Just right off the bat.
Patreon.com/Missouri Sports Pod. It was right on the top of my mind, so wanted to let the folks know about it.
We talked a little bit about, would we choose Mizzou fandom on somebody?
Yeah.
But essentially?
Yeah.
Like,
we talked about if we could go back in time, would we do it again? And if we were basically starting a new fan from scratch today, would we have them be a Mizzou fan? And we did all the other sports as well.
Yep.
So
something to think about.
If you want to check that out, patreon.com/Missouri Sports Pod. But today, Kyle, we've got, of course, it is crossover season, so we've got basketball and football to talk about. We're going to go ahead and get the bad out of the way first. And the bad is basketball.
And it's not even bad. It's horrific.
It's terrible.
It's tragic.
Yeah. So I have a couple questions for you.
Okay.
Answer them in any order you feel.
Okay.
Am I a fool?
Yes.
Are we fools? Have we been fooled? Those are my questions to you.
Just like in general, like are you a fool like in life, or?
Well,
like, I think you're a pretty smart guy.
Well, then, in reference to Missouri basketball and what is happening currently,
actually, yeah, I think we have been. I think I could say that. We're just gonna jump right into it here.
Yeah.
Mizzou lost to UMKC, Kansas City, whatever they are, like a team that doesn't even have their own arena. They got blown off their own home court. Worst loss in the history of Mizzou basketball. I'm willing to say that. I think we've been fooled a little bit. Cameron, I expected this team to not be very good. We predicted them to win not very many games this year. But what I thought we were going to see was a team that at the very least played hard, played good defense, dove on the ground for loose balls, kind of the I don't even know, the blue collar team, whatever you want to call it, the junkyard dog kind of guys. Like, that
may not always be pretty, but the effort's going to be there.
Exactly.
The preparation's going to be there.
That was so far from what we saw earlier this week against I'm just going to call them UMKC. Maybe they've earned, what are they, Kansas City?
University of Missouri, Kansas City, yeah.
Okay. Missouri is awful offensively. We knew they probably would be. They're going to be all season long. But what was just as disappointing, though, was how bad they were defensively in this game, which is what I just didn't see coming.
Right.
And maybe that's just like this Cuonzo Martin thing maybe that's where we've been fooled is, Cuonzo Martin teams are always good defensively and all this stuff. And, like, that hasn't been true for a while. And it definitely isn't going to be true this year unless they figure something out.
Yeah, I mean, the defense has not generally been the issue on the teams that aren't so great under Cuonzo. Last year was actually the first time that we saw in the advanced metrics the defense be worse than the offense, believe it or not. If you look at KenPom today, Missouri is 116th, which is much worse than in any other point
in defense
under Cuonzo Martin. 116 overall.
Oh, okay.
113 on offense, 139 on defense. So, yeah. I mean, just for reference, Kim Anderson, Missouri Tigers, overall in KenPom, 192, 159, 156. Missouri Tigers sitting right now at 116, and with a really good opportunity to drop lower if they don't perform well tonight against 300 plus ranked Northern Illinois.
Yeah, I mean, I never thought we would return to these dark of days where we're in a crater that seems like comparable to what we were with Kim Anderson. Those are almost like unspeakable days that I'm almost surprised they exist.
Well,
and,
let me
and here we are.
Let me drop a statistic on you real quick. I was looking at KenPom. Their rankings and stuff go all the way back to 2002, and so from 2002 through the 2014 season, Mizzou basketball was a combined 56-0 in non-conference games against teams ranked 200 or higher, worse in KenPom. 56-0. In the combined Kim Anderson, Cuonzo Martin era, which, first of all, the fact that I can say that is a thing. Missouri Tigers are 24-4. So Kim Anderson lost to 251 UMKC by 8 at home, 247 Eastern Illinois by 3 at home. Cuonzo Martin lost to 313 Charleston Southern by 8 and 262 UMKC by 14. 2 losses objectively worse than anything we saw under Kim Anderson.
Yeah, I just can't even process like how bad that is. And the peaks and the valleys of the Cuonzo Martin era have been so strange. Like, we've made the tournament twice.
Yeah.
It's like we made the tournament last year, but I still feel like it was almost a disappointing season. It was so weird
because the high point in the season came in the middle.
Yeah.
So,
and then just the 2 of the worst losses maybe ever in Mizzou basketball history in the Cuonzo Martin era.
Yeah. So Charleston Southern was 2 seasons ago, and what's weird about that, like, that team, worse loss than anything under Kim Anderson, was a better team than any of the Kim Anderson teams. They beat Illinois 2 weeks later, and then beat Florida at the beginning of near the beginning of conference play. So this season, we're probably going to see this basketball team beat a team they shouldn't beat.
Yeah,
and not like another, triple-digit KenPom team. We're probably going to see them legitimately upset a team or 2.
Well, I think when you have a stagnant offense that has a tendency to go a long time without scoring a field goal in a game, I think that opens the door for terrible losses. And I feel like that's what happened the other night. I mean, we'll talk about the defense, but the offense was so bad. I mean, just guys standing around.
It wasn't a stretch either. It was the whole game, I feel like.
Yeah.
I mean,
they're just cold for the whole game. Guys just driving in, taking bad shots, like taking bad threes, no movement. Jordan Wilmore just was existing.
Non-factor. Complete non-factor. Like, this is a weird situation. Obviously, we are grown adults in our leisure watching college students play basketball for fun. They are under a lot of pressure. We could not do the things athletically that they can do. And it's weird to be like negative about a college player's performance on the court. But it's on the coaching. I see it more on the coaching staff of putting a player like Jordan Wilmore in a position to simply not succeed. And this is not the first player that this coaching staff has done that with. And he's outmatched out there, and it's not his fault.
No, I think we could make an entire episode solely based on Cuonzo's like recruiting decisions and like questioning his like player evaluation abilities. But yeah, I mean, that's a good point. We shouldn't get mad at the individual players. I mean, they're trying their best most of the time. It's really on the coaching staff at this point that it's just like we're watching the same movie over and over again.
Yeah. Of
players underperforming, doing well other places, coming to Missouri, sucking, and then going somewhere else and being good again.
Right.
Like what's the common denominator here?
Yeah.
And I know there's a lot of variables when you're talking about general statements like that, but I think this coaching staff is just really disappointing right now, and I think there's been plenty of Cuonzo hate online, and I feel like we're probably one of the last people to kind of turn on Cuonzo Martin, but at this point, like, how could you not be at least mildly disappointed with what's going on?
Yeah. I mean, it sucks because obviously we always want every Mizzou coach to do well. Like it's insane when you see fans of a team like actively want the coach to fail so that you can move on. Like, can you just acknowledge that it'd be cool if they succeeded?
Yeah,
like, that'd be fine.
This has been a weird year for the really radical people online that calling for people's jobs constantly, calling for the backup quarterback, all that stuff. Like that's been their year. That has been the year for those people because it happened with Steve Wilkes. Well, it turns out he was awful like most of the year, and we'll get to that. Maybe things might be turning around a little bit.
Yeah,
you know. The backup quarterback. It turned out Connor Bazelak has been pretty disappointing.
Yeah.
Cuonzo Martin, the worst of the three probably at this point. Like those, it's the year for those people. But
the UMKC game, UMKC never went on a run. They just were better start to finish. I mean, I think they led maybe the entire game.
I think they may have. Their largest lead was 22.
It felt over pretty early.
Yeah.
Like if Missouri was playing any other team that was like, I didn't know that they were playing a bad team, I'd have been like, oh well, it was over, after 12 minutes.
I watched some of this game. Unfortunately, I watched it. Well, the first time I watched it, I was watching on a phone and all that stuff. But I watched it back today, and honestly, my takeaway from watching it again was it could have been a lot worse somehow because Missouri was just having these defensive breakdowns where they weren't switching, they weren't rotating right, and guys were wide open, like for threes and on the inside, like just getting screened out of the play completely. And the UMKC just missed a lot of shots at the beginning. It was especially bad in the first half.
Yeah.
They were not taking advantage of Missouri's defensive mistakes. And in the second half, they did.
Right.
And it could have been a lot worse.
Yeah. Overall, UMKC shot the ball quite well. They shot 11 for 23 from three, so 48%. But, one of their second leading scorer, Nesbitt, had 20 points. He was 0 for 3 from three. And 6 of their makes were from Gilliard. I mean, and Cuonzo talked about after the game how, like, the team was allowing him to go left when they specifically talked about he wants to go left, make him go right. And he said something like, I told the guys I don't have enough timeouts to stop that every time it starts happening. Like, I don't know. That doesn't seem, the preparation just didn't seem like it was there. And you're talking about, so your takeaway rewatching was the defensive struggles in the first half and how it could have been worse. I completely agree. I said early on, luckily UMKC's missing some open threes. And I said Missouri's getting nothing defensively from the point guard spot. And it's very concerning. And that's like, I can't imagine Cuonzo being okay with that. But what's he going to do? Like, Boogie Coleman is a really good offensive player, and you don't know this till you see him play a full game or two, he doesn't have it defensively. You almost are going to have to hide him, I think, on the other team's worst offensive player. Now, luckily, he's versatile enough, like size-wise, that he ought to be able to do something against maybe like a bigger, slower guy. But he was late closing out. He was late on rotations. Anton Brookshire, when he comes into the game, is a bit lost defensively as well. So when you have, sometimes both of those guys were on the court at the same time, and with Jordan Wilmore's like mobility issues and not being able to get out to close out on anybody or switch anything, that's a disaster. And then even some of the good defenders that they can switch everything would get confused on a switch and leave a guy wide open.
Yeah, you certainly hope that maybe these are things that can work out. I don't know. I don't know that it makes that much of a difference this season. But, yeah, I mean, almost every possession, it just looked like somebody was confused. Somebody was in the wrong spot. Somebody was, like, directing somebody else. It was usually Kobe Brown was telling somebody where to be. And, I don't know. And Kobe Brown was, like, playing point guard because, like, we don't – I mean, I really felt, I asked you last week, did Javon Pickett take a step? And I think we both were like generally yes. But maybe we kind of have ignored the fact that it's a terrible sign that he's our best player.
Yeah.
And that seemed to kind of come to the surface more this week.
Yeah, and just in this game, we saw the offense grind to a halt, break down, not be able to do anything. And then we were, like I'm saying we, like as Mizzou basketball coaching staff and everybody, they were just okay with like, yeah, I guess Kobe, yeah, just go do something. Because there was multiple possessions where he brought the ball up, didn't make a pass, and missed a shot. One a three, one a layup, which I guess if you're going to, those are the shots to take, but
just desperation mode.
Yeah. And that's like so alarming. That's the opposite. Like, use the rest of this game to figure something out offensively. Don't just be like, all right, we got nothing.
Figure it out by yourself.
Yeah.
I think the question everybody wants to know the answer to is, can Cuonzo Martin be fired? And the short answer is probably not this season. But nothing's impossible. But I believe his contract is publicly available. So would you like to take us through that a little bit?
Yeah, I was about to say, lucky enough, if you go to mutigers.com, you can find a PDF of Cuonzo Martin's contract. Public University.
PDF even. Wow, that's really nice.
You can download it if you want. Print it. Or just look at it on your computer, or you can just listen to me talk about it, because that's what I'm about to do. So we're looking at termination by the university without cause. So if, being a bad coach and getting fired is termination without cause.
Well, I would say that loss was worthy of cause.
Well, maybe so. I don't think the lawyers would see it that way, but... So I'll try to go through this in a way that makes sense, but basically, I'm going to kind of just skim through this. The university shall not have the right to terminate this contract without cause before April 30th, 2020. Okay. Well, we're already past that, so that's not a problem. And if they had done that, let's say the end of this year, then they would owe Cuonzo Martin $1 million. Well, that's not a big deal, right? So we could cover that pretty easily. However, there's a clause that if the men's basketball team wins 20 or more games or goes to the NCAA tournament
in its first year,
in any of the first 3 seasons, then the university shall not have the right to terminate the contract without cause until after April 30th, 2021. Okay, well, we're already past that. But it changes the buyouts and the damages that would have to be paid to Cuonzo Martin in the event of a firing. And at that point, at the end of this season, he would have to be paid $3 million. However, there's yet another clause that if the men's basketball team, where is it? If the men's basketball team in any other season goes to the NCAA tournament, it gets extended out another year, and then the damages change again if he gets fired after April 30th, 2022. So for all intents and purposes, the end of this basketball season, the buyout is $6 million.
So that's basically where we're at, is if Missouri was to fire Cuonzo Martin at the end of the season, $6 million buyout, which if you're not familiar with finances in college sports, that's a humongous buyout. And also, I will say that if they fired him after, at May 1st, that's well beyond most of the movement in the coaching carousel happens. So that's just probably not realistic. You're not probably firing. That's why the dates are so important, and that's why they set them where they are.
Yeah.
Is May 1st is late. That's way late. And most college coaches that you would want to hire are already taken up at that point, and so you're looking at the scraps.
Well, think about the end of Kim Anderson's tenure. I mean, they had
They fired him quick.
Before the season was even over, everybody understood what was happening.
Yes.
They could
in March.
Yeah, they could already begin looking at other options. And
so it almost feels like it's got to be the end of next season before they can realistically do that, unless they want to come up with. I mean, what would it, if they fired him right now? How much would the buyout be? I mean, can they even do that? I don't even know.
They technically can't. So I guess he would be able to like sue the university and get a lot more than that. So that they really can't.
They are locked up.
And even after next season, we're still at May 1st, 2023, $3 million.
Yeah.
It's not nothing.
This was an unbelievably just negligent contract, in my opinion. It
was. I feel like it was coming from a place of desperation, though.
It was, and that's partly Kim Anderson's fault. Yeah. That's part of the reason why we're still here contract-wise, because we were so desperate to dig ourselves out of the hole we were in. We had to pitch this job to somebody that we felt like was...
Did Mike Alden hire Kim Anderson?
Yes.
Or was it Mac Rhodes?
It was Mike Alden, I'm fairly certain. But somebody could definitely check us on that.
Correct us if we're wrong.
Yeah, so obviously, we had to impress Cuonzo Martin, who was clearly somebody we were targeting with this incentive-laden contract that was going to last a long time. And so that was appealing. I mean, clearly, it seemed like there must have been somebody else that we were kind of battling for Cuonzo Martin with, or else I don't know that we would have needed to go, bend over backwards this far with this kind of contract, because this was, coming in, when he started at Missouri, he was already like a top 10 paid coach in college basketball. He was up there with like Bill Self and Roy Williams just because of this unbelievable contract, which is something that I feel like Missouri hasn't really historically done. No. Like back up the Brinks truck.
Well, and it was kind of happened towards, it wasn't the very beginning of it, but towards the beginning of the SEC kind of basically all at the same time realizing they wanted to care about basketball and investing in head coaches, because after Cuonzo was hired, like SEC coaches were getting fired left and right, and schools were upgrading their head coach like all the time. And I don't know if Missouri kind of started that trend, or of some of these kind of like middling programs just being like
hiring like really legendary coaches, and
just
paying them a lot,
trying to take a swing, and like a school like Ole Miss or somebody like that had decent success for a football school, playing basketball in the SEC, to just kind of be like, not good enough, we're going to try to upgrade. And like every school just went and did that.
Yeah. I will note, this is kind of an interesting thing, that Cuonzo Martin has never actually been fired as a coach before. So he started off at Missouri State, and I will say that we live in Springfield. I'm pretty aware of what's going on with Missouri State sports. I went to a lot of those games at Missouri State when he was there. I'll just come out and say I feel like Cuonzo Martin knew he was probably leaving the year he did. They were really good. They had some great players. They won the Missouri Valley regular season, and he did virtually no recruiting whatsoever. He had like one guy signed who was kind of a local kid, and I feel like he kind of knew he was about to upgrade. He was out the door. He did not get fired from Tennessee. He chose to go to Cal. He left Cal to come to Missouri. He was never fired from any of those spots. Do you think that this is potentially a situation where he could see the writing on the wall and decide to leave before they fire him?
I'm going to say no, unless the situation just got so bad that he, like, if he was like being honest with himself, felt like it was just going to keep getting worse.
That contract is pretty lucrative.
Yeah. And where's he going to go without turning this back around a little bit, without like going to another NCAA tournament at Missouri? I mean, he could do kind of like a Frank Haith situation and be like, I'll just go to this program that's in a little bit better shape, but is a mid-major, and I can
just kind of seek refuge there for a while.
And I'll just, win, 15 to 20 games a year and everything will be fine.
Well, you mentioned, $1.5 million that he would have to pay if he were to leave.
Yeah.
So obviously, if he were to go to whatever, some mid-major school, they would probably have to take on that $1.5 million, but that's a lot different than his buyout if he's to be fired. Those figures are pretty different.
Right. But is, I don't know. I mean, think about Missouri State. Now, this is never going to happen, but we can kind of just use them as a comparison tool. Let's say, Dana Ford moves on to a better job, and Missouri State's like, maybe we could try to get Cuonzo Martin away from Mizzou before it all burns down.
We're already there.
They're not going to want to pay that for a coach who's not having success to get him away from his better program.
Most likely not.
So those are the kind of things that I think
will keep him here.
All of that leads up to, and plus this rebuild that we have now undertaken this season. One senior leaving this offseason.
Top 100 recruit coming in.
Yeah. All of that stuff leads me to believe we need to strap in and be looking at
this full season, non-negotiable.
Yeah.
And potentially
all of next year too.
At this point, I would probably expect this full season and potentially all of next season as well. Just because of how that contract was structured, that's where we're at. And maybe this team figures out how to be decent this year. There's no way they're truly as bad as they were Monday night against UMKC. I don't think we're going to see that kind of performance every game this year, but there's no way they're having a good year though.
Yeah. I feel like we already get a little bit nerdy talking about KenPom ratings and stuff, but there's another website that we've talked about before called barttorvik.com, and it's really fun for playing around with potential NCAA tournament seedings and stuff, and you can kind of keep track of using advanced metrics where your team sits compared to the NCAA tournament field, and what teams might get what seed coming up in the tournament. And first of all, no need to look at that this season, obviously. But just out of curiosity, I wanted to go see kind of where they had the tournament field slated as of today, obviously super early. But I saw some familiar faces in the kind of the top seeds. Kansas, teams that are on Missouri's schedule this year. Kansas projected 1 seed. Illinois projected 2 seed. Tennessee was right up there, protected seed. Arkansas was slated to make the field. And just for kicks, I scrolled down to I kept scrolling to see where Missouri was. They're projected 157 spots outside of the NCAA tournament bubble. This type of loss, you can't realistically now, even internally as a coaching staff, you can't even entertain the idea of making an NCAA tournament. I feel like every coach says, if you had to really, they might say just focus on going 1-0 every game or whatever. But every coach's goal every season is to make the NCAA tournament. Yeah, it's gone now.
Nope.
Fans weren't thinking that really this year.
No,
but
it's just especially as just college basketball fans in general, it's so much more fun when your team is good. It's so much more fun to
at least being a bubble team,
to watch the rest of the games, to watch the SEC games, and just because Mizzou is involved in it, and all these things affect Mizzou's placement and the bubble talk and all that stuff. But it's over so quickly. We barely even previewed these games. These are sub 250 KenPom teams. We barely even gave a thought to Missouri even being in these games because they have enough talent and they should be playing good enough defense to where it does not matter.
Yeah. And the advanced metrics say they win these games 90 to 95 times out of 100.
Exactly. And so here we are. The season is essentially dead in the hopes of some kind of postseason play, and that's just a little bit debilitating.
So listen to our podcast the rest of the basketball season, please. Join us as we try to figure out what's going to happen, what players might get better. So speaking of the players, there was a lineup a little bit of a rotation that I kind of thought was okay. Basically, it was like, who's not able to produce anything at all? Let's get them off the floor.
Remove them.
And then what do we have?
Yeah.
And I came up with Boogie Coleman, Amari Davis, Dajuan Gordon, Pickett, DeGray, Kobe Brown.
That's 6 people?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So I'm saying there's 6 guys that I feel...
When we play 6 guys at the same time, that's when we do the best. Like, oh, okay, Cam, that's really good.
No, what I'm trying to say is our 2 returning starters and the 4 transfers.
Like upperclassmen transfers.
Yeah. That's all we've got.
That's the only meaningful players that can provide anything right now.
I would love for... I mean, the ship has sailed on Jordan Wilmore. I mean, 2 games in, we know what's there. There's nothing there.
It's just too far away. There's just no production.
Yeah. Brookshire seems like the next most likely, but...
He's got a long way to go.
Yeah. He hasn't found his range yet. He still seems...
He has to play defense.
Yeah. He still seems... for a guy who's touted as being able to make threes, he still seems nervous to take shots at this level, which is understandable for a freshman.
Right. Not writing him off at all.
Yeah. But if I'm talking about for this season, what do we have? And the staff doesn't seem to want to give Sean Dewar-Gordon any minutes.
Yeah, he came in with 2 minutes left in this game.
Yeah, because of Coleman's injury. And, nothing going on there.
Have we heard anything about him, by the way? Is he going to play tonight?
He was on the bench at the end of the game. Let me see if there's any new news. But
I haven't seen anything at all. I don't think there's been anything come out.
They might hold him out just as a precaution, but I think he's fine. I don't think there's anything. It seems like
if it was something bad, we would have heard about it.
It was just a rolled ankle, basically. I mean, none of the other freshmen seem like they're ready to contribute anything at all.
I still feel like this team can be a little bit more what we hope to see. I still feel like there can be elements of good defense and effort and playing hard and all that stuff, but it just wasn't there at all against UMKC. It was there more so against Central Michigan in the first game. I know they can beat somebody. Central Michigan's a terrible team, but they can beat somebody, and hopefully they can beat Northern Illinois.
Oh, Northern Illinois. Northern Illinois, in their first game of the season, went on the road and beat a Power 5 team in Washington. Well,
good. Maybe that will give the Missouri guys a reason to feel like they have to play better. Oh, wow, this team can beat people.
Washington's not good. Triple-digit KenPom team. Yeah. They're not a great Power 5 opponent, but for, a 300-level team in Northern Illinois to go beat them, that is pretty impressive for that program. They did get absolutely destroyed by a good Indiana team after that, but they're going to look at this Missouri game and be like, hey, we did it against Washington. We know we can do it, so let's just go do it again. And Missouri should be thinking, we know we can lose to anybody.
Yep.
So
which they should have been thinking that beforehand, but now they've seen it.
Right. And you can kind of see, and this is just my opinion, but I think you can kind of see how the coaching staff views their prospects for the upcoming season based on what they schedule in non-conference. This I could be wrong here. This is just anecdotal, but I think when you see more than 2 300-level KenPom teams on the non-conference slate, that means the coaching staff wants to get some guys experience and to rack up some easy wins.
That could also be just a balance this year because we had some tough games on the schedule this year, so maybe they just wanted to balance out some of the Kansas and Illinois.
But I feel like when a coach is confident in what they have and really wants to challenge them and wants to harden them for, the stretch run,
could be true.
They throw some meatier opponents in there, or they just
Paul Quinn college like that.
Paul Quinn, that is a good example of
that's like NAIA, I think, right?
Yeah, non D1, and we still play Eastern Illinois, which is. Outside of Paul Quinn.
You're kidding me.
We still play Eastern Illinois.
We got to play all these teams that beat us in the Kim Anderson era.
Yeah.
All these revenge games where we were losing them a second time.
Yeah. Whose idea was that?
Who's doing this? Why? Might as well just schedule Norfolk State.
Right. Oh my gosh.
Should we try and move on?
I guess. Is there any? What's the light at the end of the tunnel here? I mean,
I don't even know, because it's like, as a fan, of course, I'm never gonna root against Missouri. I mean, I'm never gonna root that Missouri sucks so that we can fire the coach. I know some people have that point of view, and that's fine. You can do whatever you want. But just because of the nature of this contract that we talked about, and the fact that he's just like 99 out of 100 times, I don't think he's going anywhere for probably 2 more seasons. You might as well just hope for the best.
We've got that top 100 player coming in next year.
I guess there's not a lot to look forward to. There's not a lot of hope especially in the near future. But maybe they can figure out something, put something together this year, and we'll win a few games.
The timing was weird for this one. You, listener, will be hearing this after the Northern Illinois game.
Right. Can you imagine if they lose that game too? I mean, it would just be. I mean, I'm not even sure that the outlook changes at all if they lose to Northern Illinois. It's just that's where we are.
I mean, if they lose to Northern Illinois, there's going to need to be like a GoFundMe,
like an intervention,
a GoFundMe set up for the buyout.
That probably already exists in private circles somewhere.
That's probably true. Well,
it's probably the goal's been reached, I'm sure.
That. It definitely would be like in the next 24 hours if they lose to Northern Illinois. Yeah. Northern Illinois, not a good team, believe it or not. Their offense is especially bad. Tell me if you've heard that before.
Yeah, I heard that with UMKC.
Yeah. They scored 49 points in a loss to Indiana, but Indiana's good. Missouri's not, so anything can happen, apparently. Let's see some kind of improvement on defense. Let's not give up 80 points. Let's see a little bit crisper rotations.
Make a shot,
Somebody make a shot. Let's see a trimmed down lineup. Let's see, 6 guys play the majority of the minutes, and then Brookshire's going to get some run. I guess throw Dura Gordon out there to give somebody a rest. Don't need to see Wilmore, I don't think.
You're going to be in shape this year.
Fun times for Mizzou basketball.
Yeah, I think that's the most we've ever gone in on anybody on this podcast.
And some people would say
that we were late. We were too
late.
Yeah,
they're going to say welcome to the party, and probably that we went easy on them.
Probably.
All right, that's basketball for you. We ready to talk about football?
I'm definitely ready.
All right, football. This is the positive portion of this podcast.
Things are trending up a little bit.
Mizzou football beat South Carolina 31-28. The defense. Let's just jump right into talking about the defense. They gave us reason to be a little bit more optimistic after the Georgia game. I wasn't sold, personally. I thought South Carolina's got some good running backs. They don't have a good offensive line, but Missouri's tackling issues, gap issues, South Carolina's going to run all over us. Mm-hmm. They absolutely did the opposite of that.
Yeah.
Missouri's defense held South Carolina to 57 rushing yards. Now, caveat, if you don't count quarterback sacks, 107 yards to just the running backs, which
is, considering that's pretty much all they want to do, that's still pretty good.
Yeah, sign me up for 100-ish yards to the running backs.
Yeah, including sacks. That's 1.6 yards per rush.
Right.
That's really good.
Yeah. And obviously, like I said, South Carolina has a pretty awful offensive line. They
hold on every play.
They have to, or else more bad stuff would happen in the sack department. So it was really good to see. A team having a bad offensive line doesn't necessarily mean that Missouri's defensive line is going to go off, but it
hasn't always meant that. No.
Right. It was really good to see the defensive line take advantage, especially without Mekhi Wingo in the lineup.
Yeah, I really don't have any idea what happened over the last 2 or 3 weeks, but maybe the players have just kind of had a light bulb moment where they figured out how to play in this defensive scheme, the Steve Wilkes scheme. I mean,
there was a change, defensive line coach, obviously.
Yes. But Steve Wilkes said the scheme did not change.
Right.
Just the players have figured out their gap responsibilities. They figured out how to lean on each other and kind of know their role and do their job. And I guess I'm buying that. I guess I'm buying that maybe the guys have figured it out, and now that they've kind of taken a step, they're having fun now.
Now, we were led to believe that the defense was picking up the scheme well in the preseason.
That's true.
And that it looked like, that was not going to be an issue.
That's true, but I mean, when do you hear anything different? Like, the guys are sucking at picking up the scheme. They don't know what they're doing.
We'll see if we can get it together before the end of the season.
They're going to give up 600 yards to Tennessee probably in a few weeks. But other than that, everything's great.
Yeah, you're right.
But no, I mean,
we're seeing a little bit more honesty now.
We've been fooled before.
I think we can. I think the staff is like, oh, really now? No, really, they're getting the scheme now. Like, obviously, believe us, please.
Make the call right now.
Yeah.
Is Steve Wilks the defensive coordinator at this time next year?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Easy.
Or easy. Okay.
Yeah.
Great. I hope you're right.
I think now I said I hadn't bought into their improved defense before the South Carolina game.
But now you're all in.
I'm not all in. Calm down. I'm ready to believe that they are improving.
Oh, I definitely think so. I mean, holy cow. The defense was the worst thing I've ever seen in my life, a month and a half ago.
Yeah.
So they 100% have improved. Can they keep it up? I hope so.
I think they will be able to keep up a marked improvement over the beginning of the season.
It's undeniable that they have figured something out, at least a little bit.
I want to spotlight Chris Abrams' drain. I've mentioned before how he will really be a solid piece if he obviously keeps the explosive good plays in his game and eliminates some of the really bad mistakes. And he has already done that a bit this season. He's been a bright spot recently.
Yeah.
Really a playmaker on defense.
Yeah, he's been awesome.
And not necessarily a guy that I looked at the beginning of the season, like preseason, to shoulder too much of the defensive load.
No. Another guy that's borderline shocked me is Chad Bailey. He was nowhere to be found before the season started.
Yeah.
Kind of a guy that was a pretty highly rated recruit, and he was kind of injured, was buried on the depth chart his whole time here, but man, he has been a spark ever since he's kind of come in and started playing maybe a month ago or so. He's been great. Everybody's better when the scheme works.
Yeah. But the guys are tackling better too.
That's definitely true. I just think it's whenever you're out there and you don't really understand what you're supposed to, you don't fully grasp the scheme. You don't understand what the guy next to you is supposed to be doing. You're thinking a lot.
You're caught off guard sometimes by what the offense is doing.
You play slower when you're thinking and you're overthinking,
hesitating.
Yes, and you're just like kind of unsure where you're supposed to be. I think just all of those things were contributing to the missed tackles. They were uncomfortable, just generally uncomfortable. And once you know where you're supposed to be and you're confident, I think that's just been a big change.
Yeah, I completely agree. I hope we continue to see it. I've been impressed.
It just changes the entire season whenever we can rely on the defense to actually make stops. It just is, wow, it's like, this is amazing. This is why football is fun to watch.
It could have looked even better, I think, because South Carolina was able to convert some third downs early on in the game. That was like, oh my gosh, you got to be kidding me.
Yeah, it still felt like Mizzou dominated most of the game, except for some weird turnovers at the end of the game that kind of made it close. But or yardage wise and really for the most part it felt like Missouri was a lot better than South Carolina for the most part.
Yeah, one of South Carolina's touchdowns came on like a 3rd and 8 where the quarterback escaped the pocket. He was in trouble, but then he found the guy in the end zone, and
it was a nice play.
Yeah, it was just pretty well executed play by the quarterback. I can't be too angry at the defense on a play like that.
Yeah, it was just mainly the problems I had with Mizzou in this game is obviously the turnovers at the end of the game. There was a Mookie Cooper fumble, and then there was, Bazelak, and we'll get to this, but Bazelak had 2 really bad interceptions, and one of them was at the end of the game. But another thing was penalties. Missouri had 8 penalties for 90 yards. South Carolina somehow only had 5 penalties for 35 yards in this game, which is just an absolute joke. And while I'm just going off about everything in the world today, my God, the refs were horrible in this game. Yes. Just absolutely horrible.
Yeah. Now, let me defend the South Carolina fans barely. The refs were bad for both teams. Like the whole game, both ways, the whole time they were bad. However, there were no calls against South Carolina that took away turnovers.
No.
There were 2 calls against Missouri that erased interceptions that were just
phantom calls.
Nonsense. Yeah.
Like, literally nonsense. Like, they barely... I think one of them was on Caleb Evans for sure, like a holding on the defense kind of thing where he ended up getting the interception. Did not even touch the guy.
Right.
Just ridiculous, man.
I can't even remember the details on the second one. That was the most.
I think it was a Chris Abrams drain. He made the interception. I can't remember exactly what the penalty was, but just 2 huge turnovers that were completely negated by horrible calls.
And the South Carolina offensive line was holding the entire game.
Like every game, every play.
Yeah, and
obviously right in front of their faces.
Yeah, you can't. I understand the argument that like the refs honestly are gonna like get desensitized to it a little bit, and
you have to set some kind of precedent. You have to.
They got called for a few holds, but not enough, and the refs were just kind of bungling things back and forth the whole game. It was a struggle.
I feel like I'm not even really one to like complain about the refs. Like I understand
we say that every time we complain about the refs.
It's a thankless job. It's tough.
Yes.
Like I don't envy their job at all, and all they do is just get complained about. But this was truly a horrible performance from those refs.
It was a struggle.
Yeah.
Where did you have another place to go after that tangent? I've got a few things.
Yeah, go right ahead.
Okay. So
I'm out of breath over here.
I want to shout out right before halftime the like hurry up field goal play, which great job by the special teams to like be ready and execute that. But tell me what you think about this. It's kind of a hot take. They should have handed the ball off to Tyler Beatty, the play before the field goal. They had enough time. Like the clock was stopped. We're gonna drop a play here. If it doesn't work, you're going to get destroyed. But they were ready. The field
goal unit was ready.
Yeah, the coaching staff was not planning on the clock running after that play, you know?
Right. Well, okay, I'll go with you here because the play that they did call, if they were going to throw the ball, it needed to be in the end zone.
Right.
It's either a touchdown or a drop.
Right. That's what that's what they were planning on.
Because if you catch it, it's a touchdown. If you drop it, the clock stops.
Right. You got all the time in the world.
But for one reason, they didn't. They were like, we're not going to hand this ball off because the clock keeps running.
Yes.
Well, then why did you throw a lateral pass where if he doesn't get in, it keeps running?
And the defense is probably thinking they have to throw the ball here. They're not going to want to take the chance that the clock keeps running. I think Tyler Beatty would have walked in for a touchdown. Obviously, hindsight and everything.
Probably.
But, and I would have. Before the play was snapped, I was thinking like they have enough time to, I think, run the ball if they practice being ready for a last second field goal. And they got the kickoff with like 4 seconds left on the clock.
They had enough time.
It was
hectic.
Yes. And they did a good job getting points the way they did when they got the ball, with a minute and a half left or whatever.
1-3.
Yeah. So overall, good execution there, but I just wanted to nitpick a little bit on that. I thought it would have been a walk-in touchdown if they would have handed the ball off right there. But the only reason they were in that position in the first place was because that was the drive where Boo Smith like turned a end-around, touch pass into like a punt return and was just making guys miss and ran like laterally the entire width of the field and, got like 40 yards.
I kind of feel like Boo Smith should play more. Seems like he doesn't play a lot of snaps, but when he does, he's pretty impactful.
He's averaging 38 yards per catch on his 8 catches this year.
8 catches?
Yeah.
Wow. Seems like he should have a lot more than that. I feel like you could make that argument with really any of the Mizzou receivers. They should just be throwing the ball downfield more, but they don't.
Yeah. Well, do you want to talk about the quarterback situation or do you want to talk about Tyler Beatty?
Let's get the bad out of the way first.
Okay.
That's how we do it around here.
All right. So you mentioned the wide receivers, and I'm like, games are running together for me. Did this happen in this game? They threw the ball to Kiki Chisholm, and then he was considered. He had the option to throw it again, but he ended up just running.
I think so.
It was good, smart play by him.
He looked athletic.
Yeah. And I think you tweeted. I can't remember if you tweeted or in the Discord. You said Kiki Chisholm needs to be touching the ball more. Yeah. And like you said, that's true of pretty much every Missouri Tiger wide receiver. Now, when you have Tyler Beatty, he's going to get an insane amount of touches. But what's making it seem worse is the fact that we don't get the receivers the ball down the field. Now, we had one exception basically in this game, and that was a 60-yard touchdown pass to Mookie Cooper.
Wide open.
Yeah. He had beat the defense by like 3 yards. Yeah. And
Connor Bazelak made an excellent play. He made a great throw, and he had a guy in his face. He got hit pretty hard on that play and just stuck in there and made a great throw.
And that would have been an easy ball to underthrow. Basically, the last thing you want to do there is underthrow it, because Mookie had room in front of him, and he's fast enough. If you put some air under it, he could go get it. But really good play. So, and awesome to see Mookie Cooper get a touchdown.
Yeah.
That doesn't get called back, and see him actually making a play where he looks like a legitimate Division I wide receiver, making a play down the field.
Yeah, I think you had a stat that's going to go along with this a little bit, but that was a great play, like we mentioned. Unfortunately, that was a third of Bazelak's entire yardage for the whole game was on that play. It was a 60-yard touchdown play, and
his total yardage was 180 yards.
Yeah.
Well, Kyle, I'll do you one better.
Yeah, just one up me a little bit. Why don't you?
We mentioned the touch pass to Boo Smith. Yeah, those were passing yards. So Connor Bazelak, his stats for the game: 15 for 23 passing for 180 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. 107 of the 180 yards came on 2 plays. So take away those 2 plays. He's 15 of 21 passing, so 21 passing attempts for 73 yards, 1 touchdown, and 2 interceptions.
Drop the mic. I mean, that is so bad. That's averaging what? I mean, basically 3 yards a pass.
That's like double that would be like, that's not bad.
Yeah. It's very clear that outside of just a couple big plays, they are overly conservative. They don't throw the ball down the field at all. They're scared to make mistakes, and then he makes mistakes anyway. And he throws just really, really, really bad interceptions that just make no sense, where he throws it all the way across the field and he just lofts it into this beautiful touch pass.
Yeah, I'm surprised on that one where Tyler Beatty was the intended receiver. I'm surprised Tyler Beatty didn't start getting back on defense when he saw the ball in the air, because there was so much
time for him to be like, well, this is not going to get to me, so I might as well start making plans to
make a tackle,
get back on defense.
Yeah. And then the second one late in the game, Missouri was moving the ball. Tyler Beatty was moving the ball, I should say. And all you need to do is run out the clock. Missouri will play insanely conservative and act like they want to start running out the clock with 12 minutes left in the third quarter. And then when they need to just protect the ball at all costs, now this wasn't an insanely aggressive play. They weren't bombing it down the field. It was a 5-yard intended pass, but it just shouldn't have been thrown. In that situation, you just take the sack, play field position, and if South Carolina is going to score, which they've been struggling to do, make them march the entire length of the field. Yeah. And to turn the ball over like that and give South Carolina such a short field at such a crucial point of the game where you have the opportunity to put it away if you score, or at the very least make it really hard for South Carolina to come back. And now I expect mistakes like that from a freshman wide receiver who doesn't touch the ball very much. Mookie Cooper put the ball on the ground, same situation, gave South Carolina a short field.
Yeah, whatever, we can live with that.
It's a completely different play when it's your, veteran
seasoned
quarterback who
should just know better.
Yeah.
Should have the kind of game awareness, the game sense to know I just cannot throw an interception right here.
And the worst thing is, this is not the first time, not the second time, not the third time that's happened this season.
Yeah.
Not always in such a crucial moment in a game that you can win, but just head-scratchingly bad throws.
Yep. So Brady Cook came in at the end of this game. Coach said after the game that, it was just that last drive. Mm-hmm. They were basically just gonna be running the ball. And that's what he said, was he came in to because he was a running threat and he didn't like how Bazelak was moving. They probably weren't going to throw.
Wanted the quarterback run threat. Yeah, exactly.
So are you buying that that's all it was, or do you feel like Connor was kind of benched?
I think he was benched. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. And Coach almost let it slip, too. He, said, well, and that last interception.
Yeah, he doesn't seem as confident
said
anymore.
Something like that, and I was like, well, which is it? Yeah. He acted like, oh, it was a little bit of both. And well, that doesn't really make sense. Are you telling me you were thinking about maybe putting Brady Cook in to close out the game, and then when the interception happened, you're like, okay, now I'm definitely going to do it? That doesn't make sense.
I don't understand it. I really don't. But either way, it does seem like Bazelak's confidence has just taken a hit this season. Yeah. A lot of weird things have happened, some of it his fault, and his confidence has got to be pretty low right now. And I don't know. I mean, who are you marching out there against Florida on Saturday?
Well, okay, so this is like a week for me to take back everything I said last week, apparently, basketball and football. I said for the South Carolina game, give me 80 to 90% Connor Bazelak over Cook or Macon. Give me Brady Cook. That's what I want to see. I thought that, yeah, give me Brady Cook and let him run around a little bit. Let him try to make a play down the field. I don't care. Play the same conservative, quarterback draw option game that you play, that game that you want to play. If you don't want to take shots down the field, we already aren't really doing that, so that's fine.
Let Brady cook.
I would say that.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I don't know. I mean, are we ready to talk about the Florida game? I don't want to get too far into it.
Let's talk about Tyler Beatty first. And the last thing I want to say on the quarterback situation is, I can deal with an insanely conservative passing attack. I can deal with 15 for 23 for 180 yards and 0 touchdowns and 0 interceptions. Okay, let's roll that out. That's fine. He's not going to lose us the game. What I can't deal with is that conservative of a passing attack that leads to 2 interceptions, one of which was emergency.
Yeah.
This is bad situation. Tyler Beatty, though.
Have I ever maybe mentioned I kind of love Tyler Beatty? Ever mentioned that?
For people that have listened to more than one episode of the podcast, maybe you remember a meme of 5 Nick Boltons. So I've got a question for you, Kyle. Would you rather have 5 Nick Boltons or 5 Tyler Beattys? 5 Nick Boltons on defense, 5 Tyler Beattys on offense.
I don't know. I guess 5 Nick Boltons, because it seems like he could play more positions probably than, I don't know. Give me all of them. Give me 11 of both.
Tyler Beatty playing triple option with 2 of himself. And
that'd be tough to
and
stop.
Himself
blocking for himself.
No, 2 of him at wide receiver.
Okay.
You have a normal offensive line.
Okay, well then that's pretty good.
And then you could have
imagine an entire defensive line of Nick Boltons.
Right, a 4-3 defense with 2 Nick Boltons on the end and 3 Nick Bolton linebackers. Those would both be pretty good situations.
Yeah, you're probably right.
I'll take either one. Tyler Beatty, 34 carries, 208 yards, 1 touchdown. 5 receptions for 22 yards. He's right up there statistically with all the other best running backs in the country this year. If Missouri was having an all-time good Mizzou season, he would legitimately be in all the award conversations.
Legitimately probably a Heisman candidate.
Yeah.
Which is just insane to think about.
Right.
But that's how good his season has been, and because Mizzou is bad, he will never be in those conversations, but he is
a finalist for the Doak Walker Running Back Award.
Mm-hmm.
I think probably the Michigan State running back will take that home. They're good, and he's incredible. He's one of the only running backs with better stats than Beatty. But Beatty's ability to get it done in the passing game, too, just incredible.
So well-rounded.
39 touches.
I remember at the beginning of the season we were saying, I mean, Beatty's been efficient his whole career. I mean, even his freshman year, that's kind of when the meme of me saying, like, I love Tyler Beatty started. I mean, he started 4 years ago because I've always felt like he's such a special talent. He's unique and he's small, but he has the ability to shed tackles, and he's just always been efficient at all 4 seasons at Mizzou, and especially last year when he came in, was kind of a change of pace back behind Larry Roundtree. Like, he just seemed like he was always doing something dynamic, and I really felt like he had the ability to take a big step this year, and obviously he did that, but I don't think anybody saw what he's done. And, you know, it's literally been a bell cow running back with 30-plus touches in a game, 4 games with over 200 yards rushing. It's just insane.
Yeah. It's almost unfortunate that he and Larry Roundtree overlapped so much of their time at Missouri. Like, 2 really all-time great Mizzou running backs that
I love them both.
Had to share the backfield, but yeah.
I also shout out Larry Roundtree for scoring his first NFL touchdown this past week.
Yeah,
had a nice celebration.
Absolutely
in the end zone.
Yeah, I guess we'll move on to Florida. So Mizzou is now 5-5, 2-4 in SEC play. Need one more win to get to a bowl game.
Kind of crazy that that's the same record as Florida. It seems like Florida's had a pretty good year. They only lost to Alabama by 2 points.
Right.
That's crazy.
Yeah. It's kind of been a tale of 2 seasons for Florida. So Missouri plays Florida, and then they play Arkansas. You got to win one of those to go to a bowl. And Arkansas, more beatable than they looked previously or earlier in the season. Florida looks immensely more beatable than any point earlier in the season.
Yeah.
They are also 5-5, 2-5 in SEC play. This is their last conference game. They just played Florida State to end the season. And they had a bit of a scare last week against FCS Samford.
They were losing at halftime, right?
They were losing at halftime. They were losing at one point in the first half, 42-21.
Wow. FCS team.
Yeah. The final score was, Florida did win. The final score was 70-52. Florida gave up 52 points to an FCS opponent.
Hope you bet the over.
Yeah, seriously. Florida's offense was able to figure it out, and this is an FCS team we're talking about, so
big plays.
Yeah, they were able to out-athlete them and just kind of throw the ball around and run past Samford's defense. But this is not the first time that Florida's defense has looked sketchy, if not terrible, in the last
Samford
month.
Was doing that to them also. That's the thing, is they were scoring on huge explosive plays all game too, for the most part.
Florida gave up 40 points to South Carolina in a loss, 34 to Georgia, and 49 to LSU. 3 consecutive losses before the Samford game. So their defense has not been hot.
Yeah. They've been really bad, but I would take it a step further and say they've just kind of given up almost. It certainly looked like that, at least in the first half of Samford. And they got blown up by South Carolina. They kind of threw in the towel in that game too.
Yeah.
There's too much talent on that team, right, for them to lose like that and not give up a little bit. So, and I was watching a little bit of the Samford game. There was just busted coverages. They weren't making good tackles. They were not in it mentally.
Seems like a good opportunity to let Brady cook.
Oh man,
to me,
that would be if they brought that same defense that showed up for Samford to Mizzou on Saturday. That would be fun.
Yeah,
this is a little violent, but can you imagine getting Dan Mullen fired?
Oh man,
I'm sorry. That is That's a really nice thought.
Speaking of Dan Mullen and his prospects, his coaching prospects. It seems insane to be thinking about his seat being hot because, he's been good. He's been a very good coach for a long time, and he has ties to Florida, so they're probably not going to move on from him. But I want to let you know, when Luther Burden committed to the Missouri Tigers, that is the thing that happened. Keep in mind, everyone, don't forget that. That allowed them to jump Florida in the recruiting rankings in the SEC. So Missouri jumped to 5th. Florida was then 6th. As we speak today, Florida is 9th in the SEC in recruiting rankings for this upcoming class. And we know we've talked about it already on the show. Dan Mullen was asked about recruiting, and he said he doesn't really want to talk about it during the season.
Everything's been downhill since that. Luther Burden got him fired. I'll just say it.
I mean, basically.
He caused the collapse of Dan Mullen at Florida.
When Missouri jumps you in the recruiting rankings, it's over.
Something's wrong.
Yes. So, yeah, I mean, I kind of like the idea. I mean, Florida's not going to put up with, winning 5, 6, 7 games year after year. So they would get rid of Mullen eventually anyway. So if Missouri just wants to go and blow out Florida and put up another, what's South Carolina put up 40? Let's go put up 40.
I definitely think Mizzou's capable of that if Florida's defensive struggles continue. But a little side note, I was reading something on Twitter last night where I think like a Florida Rivals writer or something was just talking about Tyler Beatty and his season so far and the challenge that he presented in this upcoming weekend. And I just was getting a kick out of all the Florida fans responding, like, just saying things like, "We are gonna die." Like he's gonna run for 400 yards against us. And I just kind of had this like human moment where I was like, we're really all the same. All of like all these fan bases, we're all the same.
Yes.
Like we all say the same stuff. We think the same way when things go a little bit south.
Yes.
And it just made me smile a little bit. Like, man, I've heard I've seen Mizzou fans say all of these things.
That's perfect.
Pretty recently. So yeah, it was pretty great.
Yeah.
And they're probably right.
Yeah. Well, we might be in for a shootout. Florida's offense is pretty good. I mean, obviously Dan Mullen known for his offensive prowess. Florida's offense they are putting up this season almost 500 yards per game. They rush for 227 yards per game. And a lot of that comes from Emory Jones, their quarterback.
I think that's what's the most scary about this game is the challenge that their offense presents and the way that it's a running quarterback. And Missouri's defense has been terrible in every way, really up until last week. But the running quarterback, the teams that have a quarterback that's capable of doing that, that's been a disaster.
Yeah. So one of Missouri's saving graces against South Carolina was the bad offensive line play, and a really elite mobile quarterback kind of erases bad offensive line play to an extent. So, and Florida's offensive line is not as bad as South Carolina's. They have better athletes than South Carolina on offense, and Emory Jones is electric in the open field, and they just have a lot of really fast guys, and he can throw it. I mean, he's not just a runner. He has 2,100 yards passing and 600 yards rushing this season. And I think he is the least likely player on Florida's roster to give up on the season. He has been kind of playing with a chip on his shoulder all season long. And he's still, I think, has the mindset of wanting to prove that he is a legitimate SEC quarterback. So I think he's going to show up to play no matter what. I think he is the type of player that looks for a challenge, and I think he wants to make Dan Mullen's offense work. And so, yeah, I think we might see a little bit of a shootout.
I think you're probably right. Both teams trying to be bowl eligible.
Yeah. And preseason, I wouldn't have thought that the Florida game was an opportunity to become bowl eligible. I definitely wouldn't have thought that it was the opportunity above Arkansas.
Right.
So, what do you think? What do you think score-wise? What do you think prediction for this game? I've got a score written down. I'll let you go first. I don't want to affect what you're thinking with my score prediction.
I'm going to say this is a high-scoring game. I think Mizzou wins a close one. I think they win by a field goal, 45-42.
Okay. I've got it a little lower scoring, but very close, and I do have Missouri winning a close one. I've got it 33-31 Missouri. So I'm thinking probably both teams will turn the ball over a little bit and limit the scoring because of that, maybe. But
yeah, I mean, it's kind of hard to expect that Florida just comes out as bad as they've been the last couple weeks with as much talent as they have. And I do think Dan Mullen is a good coach. He's fighting for his life, and he's going to want to get things reversed. Obviously, I kind of feel like Florida could play a little bit better game than they've had the last couple weeks, but maybe they just continue to be terrible. I don't know.
I wouldn't mind the downward spiral continuing.
Oh man, if they play the same game they played against Stanford, it really could get ugly for them. But I doubt that they will play that bad.
Let's go get bowl eligible. Let's jump ahead of Florida in the SEC East standings.
There's really not. There was a point in the season where I was just thinking, I don't know, there's any way we could be bowl eligible.
I agree.
It seems almost likely even at this point to grab one of the last two.
Well, let's. We talked about the quarterback situation, though, but that's going to be a big factor in how Missouri competes against Florida in this game.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know that we still don't know if we have an answer at quarterback.
I don't know that we do for sure. The injury report came out just a few hours ago, and Connor Bazelak was listed as probable. So I just kind of feel like he starts, and I don't know if he'll stay in there or not, but I feel like we may see some Brady Cook, but I would just get the feeling Connor Bazelak will start, and we'll go from there, see how it goes. It just feels like against this Florida team who's not struggling on offense, we need to swing for the fences offensively.
Yeah.
It feels like we can't fall behind in this game because Florida's going to score.
Right. Yeah, I think you're probably right. Yeah, I would rather see Brady Cook, but Missouri can still win this game with Connor Bazelak at quarterback, absolutely. If he can limit mistakes.
Big if.
Yeah. Give the ball to Tyler Beatty a lot. We'll be okay. And they've been doing a good job of – there's been some good play calling, some creative plays, getting the ball to Dominic Lovett where he can make a play. Mookie Cooper. I don't know. I think
Boo Smith.
Yeah. There's enough there offensively to make it happen. If we could just be a little bit more dynamic down the field with Dove and Chisholm, then I think we'd really have something. But may not be till Sam Horn gets here. We're both predicting wins. We'll see what happens. We will move on to SEC Pick'em plus Nebraska. I'm just going to warn everybody, it's a little bit of a boring week.
Yes.
There's some teams basically taking a week off, playing FCS opponents, and even a couple of them that aren't are projected to be blowouts. One of the conference games, I think Vanderbilt is projected to lose by like 30. The Missouri-Florida game was probably the most appealing betting line in the whole SEC slate. So we might all just be ending up picking the favorites, but let's at least get a recap of last week and see what the standings are.
Alrighty. Last week, none of us, yet again, outclassed the guest pickers. Daddy JD, keeping it rolling.
He's not allowed to pick anymore.
No more. Never again.
Not no more.
Not even next year. All right. So last week, Cam, you scored 4, Kyle 3, I scored 5, and Daddy JD scored 6.
Jeez.
Classic.
So that brings the season total. Kyle and I are tied at 50. Cameron has 53, and the guest pickers have 60. With how many weeks to go?
I think it's
probably
over.
Not enough.
Not very many. I looked at the slate. I can tell you right off the top of my head, I'm picking all favorites.
Yeah, I don't think there's any upsets that are worth picking.
What?
Maybe South Carolina Auburn is the closest line.
Yeah.
Of the
South
slate.
Carolina is at home. Sorry, I'm stealing your thunder, producer Cameron, but I think we're gonna just all be picking the same teams.
New Mexico State at Kentucky. Kentucky's a 36-point favorite. Why are we even doing this?
Kentucky.
You go through the slate.
Just do it all together, and we'll tell you if we have anything other than favorites.
Okay. Arkansas 21. Arkansas at number 2 Alabama. Alabama's a 20.5-point favorite.
Okay.
Everyone's on Alabama. All right. Auburn at South Carolina. Auburn's a 7.5-point favorite. Anybody?
No, thanks.
No? All right. Vandy at Ole Miss. Number 12, Ole Miss. Ole Miss is a 36.5-point favorite. No? Okay. Southern Alabama at Tennessee. Tennessee's a 28-point favorite. No? All right. University of Louisiana Monroe at LSU. LSU's a 29-point favorite. No? Okay. All right. Well, here we go. Last one. Nebraska at number 15, Wisconsin. Wisconsin's a 9-point favorite. Give me Nebraska.
Oh, the first upset.
All right. I'll take Wisconsin.
I'll take Wisconsin.
Alrighty.
Yeah, I think everybody's picking the upset in the Mizzou game, though.
That is true. I was a little surprised at this line. Florida's opened as a 10-point favorite, and I think it's now 8.5-point favorite, which still seems like a little bit large to me. It seems like it should be a little closer.
Yeah, I don't know.
But Missouri was like 0-8 to start the year against the spread or something, so they haven't really proved much.
Yeah. And Vegas is just trying to get your money, so they gotta, they're not always gonna make it make perfect sense.
That's true.
But they may lose some money on this one. They may be off. Is that it for this week?
That was a lot, but I think that's it.
I think we balanced the negativity and the positivity. I kind of got sucked back into negativity talking about quarterback, but it hasn't been great. Special thank you to our Patreon supporters at the $10 level and above: Britt Treese, Brian Smith, Ryan Lee, Tristan, Ben Smith, Parker, Daddy JD, Luis Hernandez, and Tim Keens.
Thank you, gentlemen. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts. We're on Twitter at Mizzou Sports Pod, and you can email us at MissouriSportsPod@gmail.com.
Thank you, gentlemen. You can find our t-shirts and stickers on our online shop, MissouriSportsPod.BigCartel.com.
Thank you, gentlemen. We'll see you next week after a win.